This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. Today we're talking to a gentleman I spoke to so long ago, and he probably thinks I've not put his episode out because he probably thinks, oh, he didn't like the episode or something. No, it wasn't that. It's just we had so much content that we needed to slot it in somewhere. So I'm very conscious that this episode was recorded uber long time ago. So apologies to today's guest, who I'll tell you more about in a minute.
The problem in safety isn't deviation, it's complexity.
Health and safety has gone mad.
Health and safety is trying to unpick having gone mad in the past.
There's no one solution and one problem. The problem is that we are looking for one solution.
Does the structure of the team allow them to flourish?
Feel safe enough to be uncomfortable.
The environment defines our behaviours.
People aren't the problem, they're the solution.
Rebranding Safety, crushing the stereotype. Brought to you by Riskfluent.
What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. Rebranding Safety is a YouTube channel and podcast doing exactly what it says on the tin. We're here to change the perception of health and safety, and we do that right here on the YouTube channel and podcast as well. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button, follow button, all of those magical algorithm thingamajigs. Today we're talking to a great gentleman, a lovely guy called Christian Wilhelm. We talk about loads of stuff today with Christian. It's really dynamic, it's really emergent kind of conversation. As you know, that's one of my favorite types of conversations. So overall, kind of talking about loads of stuff, but really just got overarching tone of kind of new safety, better safety, so to speak. Before we get into that though, just a shout out from our sponsor, our official sponsor of Rebranding Safety podcast and YouTube channel is Paradigm Human Performance, and more specifically their HSE subscription service. The perfect solution for those small, medium-sized enterprises that are really struggling to kind of juggle all the balls, spin all the plates and so on. And maybe sometimes safety is just that thing that just sits there, which is normally fine, but ultimately when things hit the proverbial fan, then you're up the creek without a paddle. And this is where this subscription service comes in. Paradigm Human Performance are a human performance expert consultancy. So they're now providing this HSE subscription service to kind of tick those compliance boxes to make sure that people have got their legal, regulatory and industry compliance all sorted, so then they can take the next step into human organizational performance. But what makes this stand out is it's got hop woven through it. It's not the kind of system that you need to declutter later on. So it's that perfect solution for those people that just want to get compliant and then they know they want to go into that next step of human and organizational performance. So if you want to get worker safety part of your DNA, if you want to be able to utilize the expertise, the subject matter expertise of the worker, then this is the solution for you. And you can do all that whilst ticking all of those compliance, regulatory, legal and industry compliance boxes and all that. Starting from £99 a month, depending on the size and on what you need and so on. You can contact Paradigm Human Performance with the email address, phone number and website in the description below. If you're still not sure, go to the website and check out the Learning Organisation webinar. That's Paradigm's webinar, runs every Thursday at 2 p.m. It's an absolute outstanding resource of just amazing information and quality content, beautiful quality conversations. And the best of it is once you register it, you can get access to the whole backlog. So we're talking like nearly 2 years worth of content. It's about an hour and a half for each webinar. So you've just got hours and hours and hours of content that you can just absorb. So make sure you go check that out. Thank you, Paradigm, for sponsoring Rebranding Safety. And just a shout out from my company, Project Mollitiam. So Rebranding Safety is also sponsored by me and Colin Nottage. So me and Colin Nottage founded a company called Project Mollitiam. Project Mollitiam is a mastermind community. It's a membership business, it's a membership organization aimed to build a community of authentic, empathetic and understanding safety professionals that just exist together, that want to help each other out. And we facilitate weekly community calls, which are really loose and fast. And we kind of get in, or we either talk about a topic, or we get into someone's challenge. If someone's having a problem or something they need some help with, they'll bring it up and we just all dive in to help them out. We also run a a book club every month, which is a great opportunity to understand what other people have learned from the book that you've read. We also run a philosophy call. As far as we're aware, it's the only place that's actively talking about philosophical things around safety, actually having those philosophical discussions to really get into the depths of what are these things that we're talking about, what does safe actually mean, what is risk, and fundamentally, if we don't understand the philosophical side of what we're talking about, then everything is built on a foundation of sand. So we do that monthly, and then finally we do quarterly wagon wheels, we call them, but they're like mastermind events. We have a keynote, then we do workshops, and then we have a keynote from one of our members, which then we kind of all get stuck into the challenge that they've raised, and we all help them out, and then we finish off with a little goal setting workshop for the next quarter, and then we finish off and we go on our way. We've also got a resource library and loads of stuff, private LinkedIn group which is just rich full of information, good chats and so on. So if you want to join this growing community, the mastermind community for the safety profession, then go check out www.projectmollitiam.com. So let's jump into our conversation today with Christian. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
That's all right, mate. Anyone's welcome here, mate. Anyone's welcome here. Why don't you give us a quick introduction to yourself, and then we'll get chatting.
So yeah, just quickly, I'm Christian Wilhelm. I'm a human factor specialist.
Okay.
Currently working on a nuclear site in far north Scotland called Dunray. Worked there, as a human factor specialist. Mainly involved with safety cases, nuclear safety cases, quality, and actually many different things. Also trying to help out a bit of the human performance side. So it's often funny when people think, oh, you're like a nuclear person, but actually that's not where I came from. So my origin is more like in aviation.
Okay.
So I did a degree in Switzerland probably now 10 years ago. It was an aviation degree, and I got actually introduced there with human factors back in 2007 that was, and bought my first book from Eric Holnagel then.
Yeah.
So I've been reading his literature for quite a while. And then I actually worked quite a while in more an operational context. Like I worked at Zurich Airport for almost 10 years.
Okay.
In various roles, so from aircraft de-icing, so where I coordinate everything, to weight and balance, coordination of turnaround processes. I even worked briefly in Lost and Found, which was an interesting experience. It wasn't for me, but it was good to see how things work there. And I would actually say mainly my background from that is from work as done. So I work in operations, work as done, but it was really good. I had my human factors lens, my human factors view on everything, so I could just always relate to my human factors. And we had things not working well, I could give advice on that, improve human performance. And also I did quite a lot of training. I trained new people, so that helped me a lot to not overload them, but give them the right amount of freedom. And that was, I must say, I really enjoyed it. But at some point, when you do the same things over and over again, then there was no change, or you couldn't really progress your career. I decided to do an MSc at Cranfield University. So that was in 2014. So I did that, and I really enjoyed that. Went a bit deeper into human factors, and and a good friend of mine, he sent me the job advert for Dunray, and then I thought, maybe apply there and see what happens. So it's a completely different industry. Yeah. And actually, when I first arrived there, human factors was quite different to what I had in mind what human factors was. So it's quite it's almost a bit of a shock, but it was also, I was more working in the realm of work as imagined there, working with safety cases, working with engineers, helping to design plans. So it's always like there we had to guess what human performance will be like at the sharp end. So that was really kind of good to see as well. So I guess I learned quite a lot there in my 5 years working there. Yeah, that was So and apart from that, I worked on other interesting sites before I actually started my academic before I started my undergrad. I worked on a construction site in Switzerland, building the longest railway tunnel in the world.
Cool.
So that was really good. So I was more there. I was a machinist there. So I was operating heavy vehicles like wheel loaders, forklifters, all sorts of trucks, diggers, things like that. And that I enjoyed that. It's like, I was in my early 20s and you're given these big toys to play with.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. But after a while you kind of
the novelty wears off.
Yeah. And actually before that I did an apprenticeship as a mechanic. So I didn't start as, with Switzerland, things are a bit different. Actually, quite a number of people, they do apprenticeships. I would say about 30% go the academic directly straight into university, and the 70% they do like more apprenticeships.
Okay.
But you can then go back and get your A levels later. So that's what I did, and still I struggled to leave operations. So that's why I probably stayed after I've done my degree. I stayed in an operational role. But it was good experience and helps me a lot to understand people in how they do work. And my first, when I start on a task, it's what I want to do first: talk to people who are going to do the task, get their viewpoint, get their what they tell you, and that's the most valuable input actually you can get. So they can tell you, oh, this will not work. And we struggle with this, but we can actually cope with that sort of thing. So that really helps a lot.
Yeah. Where did you say you were based in Scotland? Did I mishear that, or you're in Scotland now?
Yeah, I'm in Scotland. Yeah.
Whereabouts in Scotland?
You know where Thurso is?
Where?
Thurso.
That doesn't ring a bell.
You know where the Orkney Isles are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the Orkney Isles.
Oh, nice.
That north, yeah.
Nice. My family is on the never eat shredded wheat northwest coast, so they can see like the hours of rum and egg and sky and all that lot from their house. Lovely.
It's stunning over there, actually. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah,
the whole country is stunning, actually. Really.
Oh yeah,
it's an absolutely beautiful country. I love it up there. So that must have been a shift. That must have been a shift alone, just coming to a different country and a different industry as well. That must have been quite a big shift for you.
Yeah, the country wasn't so much of an issue, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I spent quite a lot of holidays in the UK.
Okay.
Normally the West Country, Cornwall, I quite like it down there as well. But culturally, it wasn't so much of a shock. So I felt always a bit connected to Britain as a whole. So that was
good then.
And also, I mean, working in the aviation industry, that was very multicultural. So that was that was good. So, and I'm still here. So.
How long have you been in Scotland now?
5 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not planning to go back. So.
Mate, I'm jealous. I love it in Scotland. I'd move tomorrow if I could. I don't think the wife would ever let me. Right, let's get into it then. I remember we connected off the back of a blog that you did what feels like a lifetime ago now, but I just got it here on the screen, and it was actually only May 2020, but that just feels like years ago from now. I am curious first, like, I think we'll get into this quite deeply, but like, I'd be quite curious if you could kind of define, maybe in your own words, the phrase human-centered organization. Like that's curious. I'm curious as to that. What is that? Why was that your title of the blog? And we'll kind of go from there.
It kind of, well, it's almost a bit like a philosophy generally, you would generally find in human factors, make things human-centered, make things work for people. And it's, for me, it's just, it's the right thing to do. If things work for people, they normally work.
Yeah.
And if things don't work for people, people normally are able to make workarounds. So it and still works for them, which might not be the best thing every now and not always the best things, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of the philosophy as well that, you know, I mean, you can bring this diversity of people, you know, you can bring yourself to the workplace. You don't have to kind of, I have to adhere to, I don't know, they don't want my creativity, for example, and they just want me to do A, B, and C, and I do A, B, and C every day, and you know, and it's just, but I might actually have a better idea and say, if we do C, A, and then B, this might be actually much more efficient. And I've seen that in my own career, working in operational areas, where, you know, you see actually, that's not really, that doesn't really make sense the way we do it. And you try and maybe to say, well, maybe we should do another way, or we should try do it this way, or maybe if we do it this way, is it a problem if it's something I miss? But I think generally that's not done so much. It wasn't done where I worked to the airport. That, I mean, sometimes yes, but it wasn't really like taking the voice of everybody on board and make this process as not just a process on a paper that's efficient there, that, you know, that can be profitable, but make it work for people. So, and I think if we go that way, it's not a cost. There will be a return on investment very quickly.
Yeah, I would have said investment. And the quote that you put in the vlog, which I really like, because it's literally how I've experienced work when I was in operational roles. You know, Frederick Winslow Taylor in the early 1900s described the good worker as someone whose job was to just do what he was told and no back talk. That is literally how I was managed for years and years and years. No matter whether I thought I had a better idea or what, we just did as we were told, like something out of Les Mis, or do you know what I mean? Like we were gonna get whipped if we didn't do what we were told. And it just does not, like, to me, it's like, it's so blindingly obvious now, but like maybe when you're in it you don't see it, but like it's so blindingly obvious now that the way that we kind of force humans to change who they are, to you know, come under standardization. I understand there's some benefits to standardization, I get that, you know, 100%, but you know, it's kind of like standardization doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like standardization across your entire business.
Standardization of humans also, that, you know, and I see that quite a lot when people talk about knowledge worker and the others.
Yeah.
So then, so me, that almost applies, people who like work at the operational front, they're not knowledge workers. So what are they? They're just told to do A, B, C, and D. And I feel, I mean, that's not right. They also knowledge workers, because they normally have to bridge the gap anyway from done to imagine. So
they kind of succeed in spite of your standardization, in spite of the procedure. I used to work with a guy who was a sales director, and he said he used to refer to the people on the shop floor in the factory as gimps. Literally used to say, the gimps. Now, if you don't know what gimps is, it's like a kind of sex slave kind of person, which is not very nice at all, unless you're into that.
And I remember even back then when, none of this stuff was even in my brain. And even back then I was like, you can't call people that. Like you can't call people that. Like, what, they're doing a job. Just because you personally deem your job as, I don't know, more intelligent, more important, whatever, than what theirs is, it doesn't make them, they probably think their job is more important than your job. And it just, and that put in a nutshell, how people view the workforce. Like, if you're in a manual labor kind of role, people just assume you're an idiot, don't they? And I'd probably say maybe I've done it in the past, but it's just, maybe it's kind of ingrained in us socially. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's disrespectful for the people who are like doing these tasks.
Totally.
It's so, and I mean, I'm also a trade union rep, so so it's I still sometimes feel we have moved on a bit, but it's sometimes still there, and it's still somehow in our language we use, and we really, I mean, just what I like not to use anymore is this knowledge workers thing, because it's, everybody's a knowledge worker. Everybody applies their knowledge to do work successfully.
Mhm.
And maybe just quickly come back to Frederick Taylor. I mean, I read Taylor. I read the book. It's actually available on Audible, and I actually recommend it. It's really good.
Okay.
Back then, this might actually have been not the worst approach in a way. And he was quite a progressive person and bringing ideas and making processes better. And actually, in human factors, we often consider him one of the first sort of ergonomists.
Wow.
But yeah, he has a bad reputation, particularly with unions and so on, because of the way he organized work. He did a lot of great work. And I mean, he solved a lot of the simple problems in mechanical engineering. For example, when you use a lathe, what's the ideal cutting speed for the tools, things like that. He did a lot of great work. What's the ideal shuffle size, for example, for a particular kind of material? And I mean, back then, where I think work wasn't as complex as now. Okay, this approach works well, and I think he was a pioneer, but please don't apply his methods in the context of work now, because they will not work.
It needs a bit of local rationality, because it was good at its time. It's not.
Yeah, and I think he would, if Frederick Taylor lived now, he would be a pioneer now and say, well, we need to do things better. So he was that person. So I get sometimes a bit frustrated when people, drag these what can we call them? These like more historic.
They're kind of like is idols the right word? Maybe not. Like pioneers.
These pioneers back then, they were doing the best they could, with knowing what they know.
Yeah.
I normally just get a problem if you actually know how to do better, but you still refer back to the old ideas and take out the whip and just, drive people down that road and think, it's people's fault and people have to try harder. So,
it's similar to what kind of Carsten Busch talks about with his work with Heinrich as well.
Yeah.
Heinrich actually did some really good work that was relative to his time that he was around, which is funny. And I was talking to Carsten. I've just spoken to Carsten a few times now, and it kind of opened my eyes quite a lot. And that local rationality thing just really pretty much runs my life now. But it's always been there. And this was the interesting thing when he said it in a presentation before I'd ever spoke to him. And I Googled it, local rationality. I'd never heard it before. So I Googled it. And then it gave an example on this Google dictionary thing, right? An example that my grandma has said for years, put yourself in their shoes. Similar to walk 1,000 miles or whatever it is in someone else's shoes. And that was local rationality. But I've been told that my entire life. And I was just like, wow, never really thought of it like that. But yeah, that is it. But I would have been quite easily one of those people a couple of years ago that said, no, the triangle is stupid. You know, well, it's not really stupid. It doesn't work for today's time, maybe. And we've gone further than that, but stupid is a strong phrase. But yeah, interesting. Anyway, don't really want to get
I think it's often just applying this knowledge now is a bit of an issue. Not, that it's
exactly. And as well, like the intro, I don't want to get too much into Heinrich, otherwise we could end up talking about Heinrich all day long. But like when I was interviewing Carsten and we were talking about the triangle, blah blah blah, and he was trying to explain the what Heinrich intended with it, and then the kind of, it's in essence the misuse of that, which, to be honest, we could be going down the same path with safety 2, with HOP, with any of this stuff. We could be doing exactly the same thing now and misusing it, misinterpreting it, which means in 80 years time, there's another Carsten Bush that writes a book about how stupid everyone says that HOP is, but actually that's not what we intended HOP to be, or you know what I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, I remember he's talking about it, and I remember saying to him, like, so actually the triangle, we use it as like our entire business. So like there's a triangle for our business, covering our business. So like 3,000 minor accidents, 300, 100 and 1 fatality. But what we were saying was that doesn't work because of like the cross mix of, like you say, it's complexity, isn't it? Like it's the cross mixing of loads of different types of hazards. So actually we were saying, well, the triangle would actually make a lot of sense if you applied each triangle to each specific risk and or hazard, whether you want to put the two together. So like, fire would have its own triangle, explosions would have its own triangle, slips and trips would have its own triangle, and so on and so forth. And then we treat them as indicators, not as literal numbers and bean counters in a way. And I thought that was interesting. I was literally having the conversation the other day. Somebody at work said, "Oh yeah, they showed us this triangle thing and blah blah blah." And I was like, "The triangle's a little bit outdated now, but here's the kind of concept to which we should have used it and blah blah blah." And it's still there. Like it's still there. Like I'm literally having this conversation now. And there seems to be a big disconnect between maybe the world that you and I are in, and we're talking to a lot of these people from an academic space. We're understanding, complexity theory, and we're starting to look at human factors and all this stuff. And actually, what work is done in a lot of places is just miles behind this stuff. And they're completely disconnected from our world whatsoever. Still talking about, do I want to say, I'm just trying to tread lightly here, but they're still talking about the triangle, which we've kind of moved on for. They're still, heavily reliant on behavioral-based safety, whether some would say we've moved past that, some would say not, like whatever you believe. But they're still kind of working off that maybe Taylorism type of way of working. But actually, it's kind of like we need an academic as imagined and an academic as done, because like academic as done is actually nowhere near academic as imagined, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. And I always feel myself, I'm between two worlds.
Yeah.
With being like quite a practical person, but also I have quite a lot of academic friends, and I'm actually considering doing a PhD. So I like research. I like that. I see there is often actually exactly that problem sometimes also crops up in when in the CIHF, the Ergonomic Society.
Yeah,
we talk the same things. There's a lot of academic, but then there's also a lot of the practitioner, and actually there is a big gap in between. So and that's, as you said, there is this academic as imagined and academic as done. And I mean, to be fair, most academic work goes into a paper. And I mean, I read papers, but they're not the most accessible. Not the most accessible way.
There's a few things that there's problem with it. Most of the time they're stuck behind a paywall, which is the first challenge. The second time it's actually like me as a completely non-academic person, like I am so operational minded, like literally was very fine line between me being one of those, in quotation, stupid people that just drive a forklift all the time. I'm not saying they're stupid people. I'm using the saying that some people look like we were referring to our previous conversation. Otherwise, you know, my brother-in-law that drives a forklift every day will be kind of kicking my ass. You know, there's so fine line between that, me doing that manual labor kind of job for my entire life, and then me coming down this route and now realizing, oh, actually, I'd love to do like MSc and PhD and all stuff like that. And I never would have intended to do anything like that ever in my entire life. And I find it really difficult to read academic papers. Like most of the time, like I would say every third word I have to Google and find out what it actually means. And sometimes there's kind of like a academic language, isn't there? I don't know if you get it. Like sometimes they say stuff, they use words, and I'm like, dude, you could have just said, like, you could have just put that in normal English. You didn't need to write it like that.
And I find that is quite an issue with accessibility of this information. Actually, it defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned is like you have to always pay for it. It's not open source, so it's like, so what good is it anyway? And I find this is really something that annoys me quite a lot. And I mean, I co-authored a paper recently, or it was probably a year ago now, that was about human factors for a Mars mission and colonization of Mars.
Wow.
And that was really interesting. So, well, I was happy I didn't have to deal with the whole peer review interface. So I was a co-author, so it was fairly comfortable doing it. But it was like just writing it because I have probably a very, I would say, rather a simple way of writing anyway. And the thing is, for me, I'm dyslexic.
Yeah. Okay.
So I obviously now with reading lots of papers, I got used to it much more. And I had to doing my MSc at Cranfield, where I actually had to read a lot of papers. So that was like, so you can learn it.
Oh yeah.
But still, I find, and I mean, even just the font they choose there in their papers is all like Times New Roman, which is the worst font for dyslexic people.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It makes it really hard to read, and it's just like, So it's a lot of we need to evolve, and it's not human centered as such. So
ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is, I think this is the problem that we now face, is we could end up becoming victim to the same things that Heinrich's fallen victim to, because when you look at the triangle, the iceberg, the dominoes, blah, 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 actually what they are is simplifications of a very complex idea. So Heinrich's actual work is quite complex, quite in depth, very technical. He puts it into, and Carsten describes this, explains this a hell of a lot better than I do, but it puts it into an imagery to be able to communicate that message, simplified version of that message to operational people, not because they're stupid, but because they're not really used to this kind of way of working, way of reading, so on and so, way of thinking maybe. And also, in my opinion, I don't have time to sit down and read a 50,000 page academic document. So in my opinion, he was trying to just make this real quick, simple, boom, there you go, there's a triangle, that makes sense. So the bottom line means that that's an indicator that something's not right and you need to look into it, right? That's what he's trying to say to you. Okay, cool, thank you very much. And then we take that, we kind of throw it out everywhere, we standardize it to absolutely everything. And then we go, triangle stupid. No, it was a simplification. The same thing as Swiss cheese. You know, we've done exactly the same thing as Swiss cheese. His work is phenomenal behind the Swiss cheese, but the Swiss cheese, we tear it apart and we go, oh, this is absolute crap. But actually, it's a simplification of his work. So we were kind of.
I still use Swiss cheese. You know, I mean, what I normally say, apply a multi-method approach and apply many of these visualizations, not just one, because one shows you one thing, the other shows you another thing.
Yeah.
And Swiss cheese, I think it's still a good way to explain things. And I think there are two views you can have on Swiss cheese. Have you ever thought of that? Because I think, like the holes, and I often, and that comes maybe from my operational experience, that you add a lot of safety at the sharp end. So actually you get penetrated with the layers get penetrated before, and you actually almost like trying to play table tennis with like that, like crazy. and that's what it felt to me when I worked in aviation. So like doing ground handling stuff where there were like quite some safety critical issues, which I highlighted, but nothing was done. So I introduced my own operation that actually I made it safe. And if there's something wrong, Gant actually illustrates quite well as in his talks quite often, where people make things safer, where people finish the design. And I had to do that quite a lot. So I had to finish, actually there is a gap, I can maybe quickly explain it to you if you want.
Yeah, crack on, mate.
It's so Zurich Airport it's very busy, but efficiency is really important for Zurich Airport. So just as an example, you can change your aircraft within 35 minutes and you still have your bag. So because we do something like short transport of bags and things like that, and there's quite a lot of bags coming very, very, like almost when the flight departs. But when you work on your load sheet, when you're next to the aircraft, you have other things in mind, because you can't just, there is another couple of kilos coming, and sometimes you get 500 kilos more baggage arriving at the aircraft in a very short time. But at this time, you're up in the cockpit talking to the pilots, and telling them all about what is how their aircraft is trimmed, maybe other things, what kind of dangerous goods they have on the flight. So now there is a chance that you actually miss these 500 kilos. So they would be loaded onto the aircraft. And, well, there you go. I mean, 500 kilograms probably is not so much of an issue for the usual Airbus 320 or so, but still it's, at the end, your aircraft is heavier than your load sheet. Wow. And you have more weight in the back, so potentially you could get a tail strike. So you could basically, when you take off, your aircraft kind of hits the runway, which is not something we would like, and it ruins your day, and it's no fun. So what I did, I developed more of a method to estimate a bit, what kind of bags would come, because we can always see how many bags in total we had to have and how many were missing. So I just put these 500 kilos on the load sheet already. Now having a load sheet that is basically, the load sheet is heavier than the aircraft, which is safe. Then you might not have the weight in the back you have on the load sheet. So you're more nose heavy. So you need to pull the aircraft a bit more to maybe take off. But you will never have a tail strike with that. Because they
assume that they have those extra 500 kilos when actually they may not.
They might not.
But sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So in a way, you've kind of, I don't know if I've interpreted this right, you've kind of, you've just given them the capacity to have that failure happen again. Way, because you've made it acceptable to have 500 kilos. Then what happens though when they become so, is this even a thing? Like they become so used to having that 500 kilos that then we go, it's all right because we've got those extra 500 kilos. So and then you end up getting an extra 600 as opposed to 500, and then you do the same. Do you know what I mean? Or is that not even a thing, or I misinterpreted that?
The thing is, you could estimate the weight you're missing.
Right.
Because it depends on the system that your airport has. But I mean, I can sometimes see 50 bags went through the sorting machine.
Yeah.
And there were still 10 bags missing. So I would say 10 bags is 15 kilos is 150 kilos. So I would say there's a good chance these might arrive. They might not.
Right.
So I put them normally on the load sheet, because this way the load sheet is actually safe.
I'm with you, I think.
And when I actually brought up this suggestion, it was like, yeah, maybe I didn't explain it right. Or, it was just like, but we were doing, because we had incidents where there were like discrepancies of tons
Oh wow.
the wrong way.
Wow.
So there is always that if your load sheet is heavier than your aircraft, your takeoff calculation is actually safe because you didn't actually need that much runway.
I'm with you.
So yeah, it's.
I think.
I don't want to talk about aerodynamics and stuff.
I'm definitely, I'm definitely not an aerodynamics engineer. I wouldn't even say I'm an aero engineer, let alone an aerodynamics engineer.
Yeah. But basically, if you have more weight,
no, I get what you've done. Yeah, you
need more speed. You need more runway.
So they're treating the plane like it's heavier when it's actually not. Therefore, they're always going to have that capacity to.
If it comes and particularly, I mean, some airports, they don't do that. They are very much, oh no, if it's like half an hour, we don't even send out the bags anymore. This means you arrive at the airport, wherever you arrive, and you don't have your bags. And I mean, I used to work for a year in the lost and found. I don't know how annoying this could be and how angry people can get when this happens. So it's a bit like, it's, I could tell you a lot of stories from this world, but probably might never want to fly anymore.
No one's happy waiting for luggage. Like, it's never a good thing. Like, whether you're desperate, you've landed at your holiday or your destination and you are desperate to go to your hotel, waiting for your luggage is just in the way. It's just a very slow process. It's slowing you and you are desperate. So you're never going to be in a good mood. Or you're coming home and you're desperate to go home because you've been flying for 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, 24, 48, however many hours. And you just do not want to stand there anymore waiting for your bag to come out. Like, it is never a good thing. Like, I am confirming your statement from a passenger point of view. I freaking hate waiting for luggage. I remember coming home from Australia and we were, from England to Australia to England is like painful amount of flying, like painful amount of flying. It's like 2 8-hour flights, I think, and then I might have got this completely wrong. I can't remember. I'm terrible with numbers. I think it was like 2 8-hour flights with a 3-hour layover in between. So like, you're knackered. You're literally knackered when you get there, and then you have to just stand and look at this shitty carousel waiting for your shitty suitcase to come out that's filled with loads of washing. It's to be done when you get home. So no, I can totally agree.
And when it's not there, you go and queue at the lost and found.
Can you imagine? Yeah, you would.
At least it will be delivered then, but that's the only good thing. Normally, if it's a good airline, you get it delivered home.
I'm intrigued to have a chat about I remember when we were messaging on LinkedIn ages, like I say, what feels like years ago, and you messaged me and you were like, have you ever heard of ISO 27500, if I remember rightly, which is like a human-centered organization, ISO, if I got that right. And I was like, nope, never heard of it. And actually to this day, still haven't read it or worked from it, but I'm intrigued by it. Like, what is it, and kind of what's your experience with it? Is it any good?
I think it's actually a good standard. I know one of the co-authors who wrote the standard, and he's also he's a fellow from the CIHF, and I think it's kind of, first, the thing is, it's not that easy to access, although you can actually go on the ISO website, and what you need to know is freely available. So you don't need to buy the standard as such, but you can see the 7 principles. And I can quickly mention them. It's like, principle number 1 is capitalize on individual differences and organize as an organizational strength. So that's already like saying, your differences and your different people, and bring yourself to work, which I think is a good start already. That's something I think we need to do in the future.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of cognitive diversity, that does, doesn't it? Embrace.
Yeah, to me, that's very, it's really it connects well with cognitive diversity actually, and that's another subject I studied quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly go through the other principles. So the other one is make usability and accessibility strategic business objectives. So that just cries out loud ergonomics and human factors. So, and I think applying this not just for a small area, rather apply it, strategically over the whole organization, and that would bring so much benefits. And I just think of management systems, for example, information management. They're normally not accessible. Normally, it's really hard to find what you're looking for and things like that. And that's all waste, actually. If I want to speak like in a Lean Six Sigma way, this is all like going. We lose a lot of effort there.
Yeah.
The other thing is adopt a total system approach. And I mean, that's like, just start thinking about systems anyway. I mean, it's like, rather than, the Newtonian Cartesian way of looking at things, dissecting everything to its smallest bit and then looking at why does this not work right? Because sometimes we might not find that. Sometimes all the components in a system do exactly what we wanted them to do, but then the whole system together isn't working.
Yeah.
And that's something Nancy Levison explains quite well in her book, Engineering as a Safer World. So that's quite an interesting one. I'm not sure you're familiar with this one.
I actually haven't read any of Nancy's work, if I'm honest. I've downloaded the paper Safety 3, but other than that, I haven't read any of her work.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit technical, but it's interesting to read, and it has quite some good human factors, maybe more in an engineering language. Okay. So for an engineer, I would quite recommend it.
Good read, yeah.
So yeah, the fourth principle is ensure health and safety and well-being are business priorities. So yeah, I mean, that's something I don't normally say too much because I don't consider myself as a health and safety person.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, that of course, I mean, well-being, mental well-being, all these things, they should really be important, and we need to do more about it.
I struggle with. Well, I don't know. I bounce when I hear that, health and safety is a priority. It just makes me cringe. Like, even and not even the first priority thing, which is a different conversation. Just even as a general priority, like, I feel like should you really have to prioritize somebody's health and well-being? But then am I being naive? Like, this is, I argue with myself around this all the time. Like, literally on dog walks, I'm just like arguing with myself in that. Like this is why I'm just intrigued by this phrase, human-centered organization. If you're a human-centered organization, then you have human at the nucleus of your business.
Yes.
For health, safety, well-being is inherently a massive part of that, because that's the protection of the human. Therefore, you're treating the human, like, in my opinion, kind of like an asset. Like, I think actually the root cause of the problem is we see humans as liabilities. Whereas when we flip that and say the humans you employ are your liability, then it's not health, safety, and welfare is not a priority. Your people are a priority. Would probably be a better way that I would like to say it. And then I don't know whether I'm just being pedantic or what, but
I kind of agree with you, and I think it's still maybe a fragment of language from the old time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we still have to say these things. It's not just, it's just a good thing to do. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You almost still have to say these things. So, and I think maybe the standard, I mean, it was published in 2010. Maybe, okay, fair enough. It's, we might, when it's reviewed in 5 years' time, it might be changed. But yeah, I think some of the language is still like from the oldest. I see it often with my dyslexia, just to quickly link that there. It was just like, oh, the dyslexic people, they need help, they need assistance. And I don't think it shouldn't be looked as a disability. I just bring a different view. I'm neurodiverse. I normally see things I normally have a good overview. I see a system. I understand system theory because that just resonates with me extremely well, because that's something, I understand that. I don't always understand the nitty-gritty, taking things apart and then looking at each bit individually. That doesn't work so well for me. So I'm more like a whole picture kind of person. So
well, it's more imaginative, isn't it? Like if you look at the people that struggle, because I'm the same. I struggle with numbers, really struggle with numbers. I'm terrible with dates and things. Like I could not tell you my mum's birthday, other than the fact I know it's near when the fireworks start going off. Like that's I'm terrible with stuff like that. And it's taken me many years to be able to write a message or an email that actually makes sense. To be able to read as many books as I read now, it's taken me years. So I was tested for dyslexia when I was a kid, and surprisingly, I don't have it apparently. But
well,
I'm telling you now, I have something, because I'm terrible at that stuff. And if you look at some of the people that had dyslexia, I remember. I might have got this wrong. Richard Branson, I think, has got dyslexia. Einstein had dyslexia. They're really good problem solvers. They're really good at thinking outside the box, looking at the whole picture, like you've just said. They're much more imaginative. So actually, for me, you hit the nail on the head earlier. You hit the absolute nail on the head earlier. In that, it's just a different view. It doesn't make me any less of a person because I'm terrible at grammar, spelling.
No, and it actually can bring it. If you think 20%, and just to mention your experience, I had to go to a psychologist, like a learning psychologist, and they didn't pick it up.
Oh, really?
But I can tell you now, because I know quite a bit about cognitive psychology of being a human factor specialist. I don't have an official paper telling me. I can just tell what I do, just transposing something that's written down to, let's say, you want to write something, rewrite something that's on a Mac or a laptop on your iPad, and it's not open anymore. I lose it. I can't store this information. I can't store like a long sentence. The way I need to do it, I need to create meaning in my head, and normally that's a visual picture, and then I try to recreate that in writing, but the writing will be completely different. And I can tell you, I tried the NIBOSH diploma.
Right.
So you have to bring out things word by word.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Not a chance I can't do that.
Yeah, I am literally exactly the same as you. If it's a story, it sits in my head. If if people that are good storytellers, and I know everyone talks about storytellers and blah blah blah, whatever, but like I struggle with books. Like I'm reading one of Eric's books now, and if a lot of it is very, Eric is Eric, and he's writing to a specific audience, and this is not a criticism of his work. He writes in a manner which really doesn't stick with me. Like I literally will have to write something down and refer back to it at a later date, or note it or whatever, and refer back to it when I'm at work and do it. And then once I've done it, it sticks there because I can remember, I've got a reference. So I did it that day. But if somebody tells me a story, like I've just read Our Iceberg is Melting, which is a fable around change management. And that really stuck in my head because it's around the stories. I can remember the characters, I remember the visualization, the pictures, the iceberg, the penguins. And I'm just like, this works for me. I get it. Oh, this is like the iceberg thing. Yeah, okay, I get that. I'm exactly the same as you, mate. Exactly the same.
To be fair, you sound to me like you might, I mean, it's always, these tests, they're not 100%, I mean, I was able to cope and doing an undergrad degree with, I mean, it was a huge hassle. And every time I was in training, I was like doing my load control training. I was a nightmare. But then at the end of the training, I knew everything.
Yeah.
I normally end up knowing everything because I store for understanding. You can never de-understand. You can de-learn. You can what you learn, you can forget.
Yeah.
But what you understand, try to de-understand. You can't. So for me, whatever I learned, I accumulate. So I'm quite a sponge. But to me, it takes a long time to learn, and that frustrates people, particularly people who give the training, because like they sometimes go, "Oh, is he asleep?" No, it's just I knew at the end, and when I was like doing my job at the airport, I was really good because I could feel the system working. I was always ahead of the task. You know, there was nothing that could really stress me at work, but I had to get there. And to get there was a lot more struggle than being not dyslexic. But once you're there, you really, you know, and that's what I think we don't really pay that much attention to dyslexic people because they might, you know, the learning curve is just different.
Well,
but at some point,
go on.
But at some point, they might be well ahead.
Yeah.
And our society is yet not there to really appreciate these differences.
Well, it's standardization again, isn't it? We have a standard human, and dyslexia or dyscalculus or any disability really does not fit the standardized criteria for a human. Therefore, we deem it as lesser.
Yeah, I mean, school.
Yeah,
school, for example. When I went to school, we had something called dictation.
Yeah.
So that happened every second week. So, and my parents just try harder. And I mean, you know, I could write one word correctly in the first paragraph and then completely wrong in the second. It was just like that. And then the whole stress, of course, because you go into a negative spiral with the whole thing. And it's really hard to recover. And when I went to school, and I mean, I'm turning 40 this year, so it's been a while, and everything was German, obviously, because I come from the German part of Switzerland, German-speaking part of Switzerland, and it was really, you know, everything was based on language, and I must say my dyslexia is worse with German. It's not too bad with English.
Wow.
So there is also the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
But we drifted off into something else again. So, but it all connects to the human-centered idea. You know, it was like, can we bring ourselves to work? And I mean, we're still not where maybe some organizations are, where they all say, "Oh, we have neurodiverse people, and we, you know, this is our asset. This keeps our company alive."
This is why I think that Amy Edmondson's work in psychological safety is, for me, is one of the biggest things we've needed for a long time. Like, I'm not saying, you know, obviously that stuff was there, and it's, you know, it's just a natural evolution every time, but how popularized it's become for me is game changing, because we can do all this stuff and say, yes, you know, we have accessibility, we have diversity and so on. But cognitive diversity does not come unless you have, in my opinion, psychological safety, because you'll have diverse people, that's fine. And in the book Rebel Ideas, there's this really good picture where he does it, and he's got like bubbles, and you have like a good psychologically safe team. He doesn't call it that, but he calls it like a cognitive diverse team. You have that, I think that's what he called it anyway, and it's like loads and loads of circles, you know, all overlapping box, like, you know, like a ball pit essentially of loads, and each one of those is a different way of thinking. And actually what ends up happening is we just mold into that one big bubble, so then that it just becomes one big bubble, because we mold people into our way of thinking, which is what we do through procedures and policies and standardization and so on. So that's, I don't know what you think, but I think Amy Edmondson's work around psychological safety is a game changer.
Her book is absolutely fantastic, and it's really good for me. I normally listen to books, so I have an Audible subscription. That's how I get a lot more information in. And I mean, I think it's really, as you say, it's one of the most important elements. And I would also predict something here. I would say most organizations have quite a cognitive diversity already there, but nobody really in the organization knows about it. And it goes back to, when they recruit people, they always look at the skills immediately needed. But what else is under the bonnet? The CV goes in the drawer, never to be seen again. And I mean, we're all different. I mean, some people are introvert. They don't really like to, come and step up and say, well, hang on, this is wrong. And I mean, I would consider myself introvert as well. I'm more like a quiet person. And I often, I'm not always comfortable to contribute, even like with web things and that, like, for example, Teresa's webinar, I sometimes say something, but I'm not like a person who is like feeding in information all the time. I'm a bit like almost reserved, but yeah, it comes probably from being an introvert as well. So, and introverted people have a lot of good things to say, but they very quickly feel like, oh, I think this group is really not
for me,
a place I want to contribute, because they might just hang me if I say something maybe a bit controversial, I don't know, thing like that.
And what a horrible world to be in, where just because of your personality, which there are so many people that are introverts, and it's kind of like you can't be a manager or leader in a business unless you're extroverted, and that's kind of how it works. And in a way, I think this is what sits really uncomfortable with a lot of people in this new, is it even new, but like this better way of working in a more human-centered approach. It's kind of like embracing chaos a little bit, like embracing so many different opinions and different ways of working. Like, if you're going to put it in its really simplest terms, like not having a procedure for how to run a machine, but having an end goal. We need to produce this product for this standard of quality, because that's what we need to do as a company. The machine works like so. Then engineering set parameters in the machine. The machine physically can do this, but it physically cannot do that. So here is your parameters. Off you go and make me a product, please. This machine like the back of your hand. You've worked here for 20 years, but Bob runs it like this and Steve runs it like that. And that's a good thing. But to a manager, even to me, when I started in this career, that would have been chaos. Like, in my head, I'm like, this is just chaotic. It's scary, I think, for a lot of managers and leaders.
But I mean, just to, this example, it's really good. And when you look at the maker communities, I mean, I have a 3D printer, I have quite a lot of tools, and, I buy tools that are versatile, that can do many different things. So, but I need to know how to operate them, and I need to do it safely, but they can do many different things for me. And it allows me to be creative, to make whatever I can, there's almost no limit with all the different tools and combining them as well. And I think that's something we don't want people in a way, we almost like strip them of their creativity and just like, operate the machine the way you want.
Yeah.
Because Bob has a better way than Charles, for example, or, it's just,
because it kind of happens anyway, like maybe not in all industries, but like when I've worked in manufacturing and I've worked in construction, more kind of trade-based, domestic kind of construction work. But like when I think back to like, even when I was at college and working with electricians, training to be an electrician, like you work with one electrician one day, and then a different electrician the other day, and they would do something completely different. And you would just pick one that worked for you and go, yeah, the difference is that the way that you described the person that did it different, you would say they did it the wrong way, but actually it's not. They just did it their way.
Yes.
Is the end result what we wanted? Did the lights all turn on? The sockets work in the house? Yes. Did there was no serious electric shocks and no one's hurt themselves? Blah blah blah. Well, that's successful, is it not? And then that's
Yeah.
what we're after. And the same when I worked in manufacturing. Like I specifically remember these two shift leaders, and they would run the shift very differently, very, very differently, but both were successful shifts, both were successful team leaders.
Yeah, I see this variation. I mean, and this variation, I think, even is necessary anyway, because there's no standard human.
Exactly.
There is no standard human, so like we are. It's quite a it's neurodiversity. It's different heights, different strengths. It's just, and that brings us back to the human-centered approach. Actually, there is no standardized human, so we need to make it work for everybody. But maybe I'll quickly finish with the 3 principles, just to have them.
Sorry, I thought you'd finished them. I've massively interrupted you there. Sorry, carry on.
No, I mean, it's a chat, so it's not. So the third last is value personnel and create meaningful work, and that goes also back to cognitive diversity and links a bit to the first. But I mean, like, meaningful work is really important.
I love that.
I mean, it has to be meaningful, and if it's meaningful, you can own it, and I mean, you're proud of your output. So for a company to have meaningful work, I think everything else is almost a waste. Everything else is almost like it's a wheel that doesn't need. It's like it's a wheel that doesn't do anything. It's just, yeah.
I love that phrase, meaningful work. I think that's a beautiful phrase. Like, and I think a lot of the problem with when you mention pride of work, for me, we have this conversation around accountability all the time in safety. We need to, we want to make people accountable for safety. We want to make people accountable for their work. And when you talk about accountability, it's just, I want to blame somebody. But actually, how I look at accountability is just priding in our work. And we can create a space in which the work is meaningful to them. Therefore, they take pride in their work. Therefore, they choose their own accountability. They take it on themselves. You don't force accountability onto someone. You create a space in which they become proud to do the work, proud to work for you or your brand or your company or whatever it is. And that's accountability. I love that phrase, meaningful work. I love that.
And I think it's always like, it's if I always feel accountable for, it's like, but with some work, it can be quite difficult. And I see that often in certain work in nuclear as well, where you just finish a report or something and then, well, this is done. And actually there is nothing that, it's a regulatory requirement. And I think it's really kind of just to do something for regulatory requirements is, it's almost like the feedback loop is missing. So like nobody really thanks you for that. It's just like, oh, we had to do it. And I don't think it's always healthy for people to just do that work and, do work that's more meaningful to them as well. And I would also think with where we are with, just generally the world with certain jobs are probably really not good for mental health. And I guess these are the jobs where, people fail to see the meaning of their work as well. I think that might link together. So just links to the previous principle. But just going quickly, and the last two are quite, the second last principles, be open and trustworthy.
Nice.
I mean, I always think, for a leader, trust is it's the most important thing. I mean, and I seen that when I did my military service in Switzerland. If I couldn't trust the captain or so, it wasn't working. And I had this experience when I became a corporal and then later a sergeant. I didn't really trust that captain, but I really had a good captain when I was a recruit. So So that was really different. And this trust, when it's not there, leadership without trust doesn't work. And I've seen people who lead without trust. They don't normally lead with their institutional power, because they were the appointed manager and they have the managerial powers. But just looking at teams like that, they're often dysfunctional and sad, and a lot of turnovers, and many other things, I guess, as well. And probably psychological safety isn't existent in an environment like that.
And as well, like, I think we have been ingrained to manage in that way of utilizing our title, pulling rank, and kind of, I am the manager, you are my subordinate, you must do as I tell you to do. I think what people really don't understand is that actually, if you just build a relationship with a person that's not command and control, that's kind of, engaged, an engaging relationship between the two, a meaningful relationship, that's a two-way kind of street, you still have the legitimate kind of hierarchical power to be able to pull rank, if you want to use that phrase in quotation, when needed. But what you get is that trust and respect and that relationship. And actually, people work harder. They work harder for you. And I've seen it. I used to be a chef. I have seen kitchens that is a very tight-knit team. It's extremely tight. Like you've got, and it's like a well-oiled machine when it works, but it does not take much to flip that switch for it to be like an old, rusty, clamped out machine that doesn't work. And one of the main things is the head chef. Chefs are traditionally run off a fear-based system, in that chefs are stereotypically, and it is true, angry people that throw knives across the rooms. Yes, it actually happens. And just swear at you and shout at you. You've only got to read Gordon Ramsay's book, to understand that. And that stuff actually happens. But I remember when I was running a kitchen and we were just good mates, all of us. I was still the team leader in that kitchen. So when a decision needed to be made and no one was sure, they just said, James, what do you think? And I say, I think this, but what do you guys think? And if one of the chefs would say, I think that maybe we should do this, and we go, okay, cool, do that then. You still have that hierarchical system of power. But when it comes down to the fact that we need to slog it, I need them to work hard for me, they do it. I don't have to ask for it. They just do it. We just come together as a team. We just get the job done because we need to get it done. And we have a relationship which they know that I'll look after them as soon as I get an opportunity to. But right now, we're all in the shit. The restaurant's packed. The ticket machine's going nuts, and we just need to get it done. And I think people have this opinion that they think people will work better and harder if I just beat it in them. Whereas actually, if you just build a relationship built on trust and respect, then they'll work better for you anyway. I've gone out of focus.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's my experience being like a sergeant in the military, but I had this approach, which was actually not the senior officers didn't really approve of the way I did it, but I was in charge of transport and all the lorries and stuff, and it worked like a clockwork.
Yep.
Without me ever shouting or ever, it just worked. And
I remember just a little anecdotal kind of story. I remember when I was working at this pub, and so basically we had like a head chef, and then when that head chef left, unfortunately, basically the whole pub got like torn apart. It was a terrible pub. Got torn apart. The chef was fired. The guy that owned the pub, it was like a franchise. So the guy that run the pub, he was fired, and so on and so forth. There was loads of problems. And long story short, we went through this massive period of kind of like turmoil. And that was a period I was kind of made like holding team leader. And this ended up going on for ages and ages and ages and ages. And then we ended up having just such a good team. And it was whenever it was, everyone in our team had like sections of the kitchen. You had like pot wash, desserts, like starters and sides and then meats and all that stuff, right? And then you had what normally is the nucleus, what normally is the head chef, the person that plates up. So gets all the food, shouts out the orders, gets all the food and plates it up onto a dish, right? Then normally the team leader or the head chef or whatever your setup is in the kitchen, they're normally quite extroverted. They're normally quite loud. And I inherently fell quite nicely into that position as a very mouthy young man that was very extroverted. So fell quite into that, and we ended up having a really well-oiled machine, like I said earlier, and everybody in this team could do every other part of the kitchen. That was like a fundamental thing we needed to happen, because we would go on split shifts when it's quiet. So people would have like a 3-4 hour break, and you needed one person to be able to do the entire kitchen and some extra jobs. So it was a very important part of what we did, to be able to understand everything. And it's a good example here of a leader kind of coming in and not listening to their staff. Long story short, we got a new head chef in. She kind of came in, and it was like Saturday, and she came into the kitchen, and she was like, right, here's the plan for tonight. Now, I always plated up, and it worked really well. And she was the new head chef, so she wanted to plate up, and that's, oh, okay, whatever, that's your prerogative. You want to do that. Long story short, we had this conversation outside, doing what chefs always do, sit outside and smoke. And we were all sitting outside and smoking. And she come in and she was like, this is the setup, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really say anything. I get it. She's a new head chef. She wants to plate up, blah, blah, blah. But the other lads were like, I'm really not sure this is a good idea. Like, this is your first shift. We're forecasted to be really busy tonight. And it's probably a good idea for us to stick to how it normally works and then tweak it on other periods. They said that. I didn't say anything. So I was like, cool, that's fine. They put me on pot wash. So I was like, that's cool. I'll be demoted to pot wash. I had a little bit of a paddy because I was a bit young back then. And I just nailed pot wash all night. It was a great night. It was easy peasy. We ended up getting really busy, and it went to shit because this whole machine had just broken down because it was well oiled and stuff like that. So when I look back onto this, I'm like, yes, I'm not saying she couldn't have come in and put her new way of working on. Yes, that's her prerogative to do as a new head chef, but she should have listened to her staff. She should have listened to what they were saying to her. And we were right next to a cinema, and basically whatever we used to watch, keep an eye on what films were coming out. If it was a popular film, we knew we were going to go busy. We knew we were going to be busy. We were right next to the cinema, and it was like Harry Potter or something like that. And we were like, look, I'm telling you now, we're going to be absolutely booming. And because we were next to a cinema, we were very different. Like, our stock levels were different. Our stock levels were based on the films, not based on normal times. We were very much out of the way. So normal things like Mother's Day were quite quiet for us unless there was a big film on. So it was very strange, but they just didn't get it. They come in, standardization. This is how the chain of pubs operates, our stock counting. This is how we operate running a kitchen. It all went to shit on the first night. And the lady running the whole pub, she came in and she was like, what the hell is going on? I have customers complaining and complaining and complaining. And put it all back to the way it was. And I'm not saying this story to make it sound like I'm the hero. I'm not. Like, put me back on the plate up, and we just smashed it out. We got it sorted. Yeah. Like I said, I was very young, I was very arrogant, so I probably did walk around like a bit of a cocky arsehole for the rest of the night. But when I look back on it now, I think that I didn't say anything because I was technically being kind of demoted. So it wasn't really my place to say anything. Well, I did. I swore and moaned. But other than that, the others kind of said, actually, I don't think it's a good idea tonight, because of their knowledge of the team and of the kitchen and of that pub. One of the guys who was he just run the grills all night. He had worked there for donkey's years. We all looked to him. Even the people that managed the entire pub looked to him to kind of forecast what was going on. He was kind of like the oracle. Like, talk to him because he knows what he's talking about. He knows this pub inside out. Fucking hell. I mean, he still works there now, and like 15 years on. And I'm just like, when I look back on this lady now, like, she come in that old school way of managing. I know better because I've done this in another pub. Yeah. This is a completely different pub. Didn't listen to her staff and just went, off you go. And it all went to shit. I've seen it happen. I've seen managers come in and do that command and control, and it all goes to shit. That's not the better way to work. Listen to your team because they know what they're talking about.
I think that's the most important thing. And I guess, it's also, just the whole dynamic goes into the bin anyway. It's all like, it's just wasted Yeah, I got a couple of examples like this as well. So it's just not going to mention them, but it's very similar to yours. It's just like, I felt like that in the military. It was like,
I can imagine.
It really was. I had captain there when I was a recruit. He was firm. He was but he was fair, and he was really. I mean, he could be trusted. If he said that, this is what we're going to do, and treat the people with respect. He never really shouted or wasn't loud or anything. But you could just. What I learned from him was like, we the Swiss Army have like two sort of like, one says which troops you were in, like, so it was the rescue search and rescue troops,
right? Yeah.
And the other side was the rank. So I said, I'll lead with my personality and with my competence. I don't want to lead with my rank.
Nice. You got one more principle left, is that right?
Yeah, the last principle is act in socially responsible way, or act in socially responsible ways, maybe, as it says. So it's linked to ISO 26000, and it's more a guidance. It's not really a standard. Probably aims more like large companies, and how you treat your environment and everything, and just generally like as an idea.
Corporate social responsibility kind of.
It links to that, but I haven't really seen much of it, or many organizations saying, well, this is what we do, this is what we apply. So it's also a bit like, it's probably not that well understood. There's some LinkedIn groups about social responsibility, but I mean, this all links in a way, of course, to human-centered organization. Like, then the more what you do in your organization, and I think it's what I felt when I read the standard. It's very close to the Safety 2 philosophy.
Okay.
Like, people are a solution, not the problem.
Yeah.
That's basically the underlying thing I read from that. And for me, it's also, I think it was maybe the hope to make human factors a bit more, what's the word? Bring it a bit more into the spotlight.
Limelight. Yeah.
And I think human factors could do a lot of good, but sometimes we feel a bit like just, or you do like safety case, or you do like engineering, and we don't really see the strategic benefit it could bring. And I must say, I don't know many people in higher positions with maybe a background like that. So maybe that's what it takes. I don't know.
I think it's interesting because you kind of alluding to something that's been ticking away in my brain. Teresa Swinton, I sort of talk to her quite a lot, and I know she is part of like I don't know what it is, but like she coaches like she runs like a human factors kind of human organizational performance lecture as part of an MSc in occupational health and safety for a university. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute. Like when I heard that, I'm like, hang on a minute. Whoa, slow down. There's a human or an organizational performance / human factors section in the masters for occupational health and safety, because NEBOSH and NCRQ and any of the others, which is the most common traditional route into safety, don't even touch on it. Do not even mention it. So why have we acknowledged in even if it's just one unit, which is not good enough in my opinion, but it's better than what we've currently got in a NEBOSH. Like we've acknowledged it in the master's route, in the MSc route. We have not acknowledged that we need that. And to the point where I was even talking to somebody who works for NCRQ because I commented on one of their posts. They were saying, new course is coming. And I was like, if the new course is not around human and organizational performance, human factors, culture, whatever you want to call it, understanding how people work. If it's not around some things like systems thinking and complexity theory and stuff like that, which is actually what we need, then you've wasted your time and you have wasted your another qualification for someone else. But I'm sure it will just be, here's NCR's construction and fire certificates, which is just a copy and paste of NEBOSH. And it's so disappointing. But it's nice that, like you're saying, it's coming into the limelight because universities are picking this up. And if they're picking this up, everywhere else will hopefully follow. My camera's gone dead, but I am still here.
I think it still needs more work, and we still need to push it. And I mean, I think human factors has become quite a bit a part of, well, I mean, when you look at Sidney Decker's work, Eric Holnagel's work, that's quite, that's human factors induced sort of safety.
Yeah.
And it's not that, well received everywhere, as you might know.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, so that view, and I mean, Sidney Dekker with like his book Drifting to Failure, where he talks about complexity quite a bit. Yeah. And actually that led me to start studying complexity theory quite a bit in depth. And, I think I have quite a good understanding now of that. And I think we need to really more doing that. And I mean, complexity theory as well needs to go more into human factors courses syllabus.
Yeah.
These things as well, system theory, I mean, complex system theory, all these things need to be in there, because the world tomorrow is just a tiny wee bit more complex than it was today. And we go on. And I mean, just with that, we will also lose more work that's more cognitive routine.
Yeah.
Cognitive routine work will more and more be replaced by more sophisticated AI. So, and we will be more like, really use the human, but they're good, they're creative. There are things that are, I would say, probably impossible to copy with AI.
I heard something really scary the other day. Just curious that because you mentioned AI, and it really worried me, if I'm honest, that we'd actually go down this route. I can't remember for the life of me what podcast or story or whatever it was on, but this guy basically said most people think that AI is going to replace the manual worker, but actually it's more likely to replace the manager, because an AI can much quicker and much more efficient, in his word, I don't think it is efficient, come up with a calculation and a job work order to say, have you done this? Yes, I've done this. Right, now do this. And order the human, which for me is really scary, because we as humans are really, like, this whole conversation we're having is essentially rooted in the fact that we still struggle to understand the complexities of humans and embrace diverse thinking and diverse people, and that's really complex. I can't imagine AI is doing a better job. So when I heard that, I was just like, oh my God, that's scary.
And I think we move, with AI, I think what I criticize with AI is like, the approach is very much top down. So you're trying to design something, a consciousness, but consciousness is an emergent thing, it emerges. And actually, when you talk to a neuroscientist, we don't really understand it that well.
Yeah.
We're far away from, and I mean, how do we want to reproduce something we don't even understand? That's quite a bit arrogant in a way. And I find sometimes, we're not algorithms. Humans are not algorithms. Yeah. And also, we have many different layers. We have the thinking layer, but then we have the emotional layer as well. And that plays a big role. That's not just there for, it's a nice bit to have. The computer doesn't need that. It's just in a way. That's important. It's important how we, probably in a way that we couldn't even explain, because it emerges out of what we are at the end.
Yeah.
There are things we're not good at. We're not good at staring at a gauge for an hour and wait for it to go from 0.1 millibar to another millibar. I mean, we fall asleep. That's not a good task for us. Give that to a computer. They do much better job. They don't get bored.
Yeah.
But for us, I mean, what we're good at, we're really, I mean, I often hear people, oh, I'm really not a creative person. I think that's not, every person has a creativity in a way, you know, like just maybe not, you might not be an artist and do and create paintings, but every person has a creativity. And I think that's, with more introduction of AI, is what we probably, it's going to be a knowledge economy where knowledge is actually the main good, not like something a machine produced. So knowledge might be really the thing that's most important for us. And that needs cognitive diversity, because without cognitive diversity, we're not able to predict the future.
No.
And I'm not sure you're familiar with Scott Page's books.
No.
He wrote he wrote quite a number on cognitive diversity. He's a mathematician.
Okay.
And he actually he came up with the diversity prediction theorem. Okay. And mathematically, you can actually say, you know, a more diverse group in a complex environment makes much better predictions. So that's actually, it's a mathematical fact.
I vaguely remember this, actually. I wonder whether Matthew touches on it in his book.
He has good friends, I think, with Scott Page, yeah.
I vaguely remember this, that I think he talks about it from a stocks and shares point of view. And he says, you know,
there is something called, there's an online platform, just forget the name, that where it's basically a prediction market. It's called a prediction market.
Right.
And I've been on there and, you know, like provided my input, and it was really interesting. It pretty much predicted Joe Biden's win.
Yeah.
Where other models failed miserably.
Yeah.
That were just applying the old ideas from before Trump messed everything up. You know, where Republicans voted for Republicans. Now Republicans might not vote for Republicans anymore, so they might just do something else. Yeah. It made it all complex. People do different things. Your old models, your old ideas, you can just throw them in the bin.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's like that thing you said about, you know, we there's layers to humans, isn't there? There's our kind of our knowledge, our experience, but we're emotive, like we're so emotive, and that can dramatically change how we are. Like, and this is like I think another benefit to building relationships with your employees is to be able to pick up on those subtle indicators of someone's emotive state, because you know them well enough. Like, you know, like if you're like me and my wife, for example, have known each other for, you know, we've been together for like 10 years, probably more than 10 years now. But like, you know, we can pick up on the slightest indicators that one of us are not in a good mood, like tone of voice, you know, body language, very subtle things.
It's so subtle. Yeah. You don't, I mean, it's almost like nothing, but it's just like, it strikes you.
No one else will be able to pick it up. No, but I can tell 100%. I'm like, she is not comfortable with this conversation. And if we can do that, you know, bear in mind, some people work at the same place for 10, 20 years, you know, so it is possible to build that type of relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's that intimate with an employee, if you're there long enough with them as well. And people are like, oh, you know, I'm not going to be their wife or their husband, but it's not. No, it's not. It's like, get yourself out of these kind of stereotypes, like, and think about the benefits that would bring. That if Steve turns up and you can pick up on that subtle indicator that his tone of voice indicates to you he's not in a very good mood, you can highlight that and potentially stop any mistakes. Whether it be health and safety, quality, production, whatever it is, you can pick up on that. Are you all right, mate? well, you know, I've just had an argument with a wife on the way. She really pissed me off. All right, let's take 10 minutes to calm down, whatever. But you just pick that up instead of normally, it might have gone on the machine, jumped on the forklift, you know, gone up the scaffold, whatever, in a state in which he is not thinking straight or kind of, you know, in his cognitive norm, so to speak. To be able to pick up on stuff like that as an employer, I think is just like unbelievably valuable.
And I think that will never be replaced. You know, this will.
Yeah.
There's so much more to humans. We're complex, and scientists don't understand what we are fully. I mean, it's not that we can really say, oh, we can just reproduce ourselves, or we write a couple of algorithms, and oh, look, there's a human. Yeah. It doesn't. I don't think this will be. You know.
And also, go on.
Also, machines. They don't understand. They have just a huge amount of data with a lot of boxes, and they see, oh, this is that box, this is that box, you know. But they don't really understand. There's a German neuroscientist, Henrik Beck, I think his name is, and he really says, you know, people have the ability to understand things. We can never de-understand something, you know. It's just, and I might send you a TED talk maybe later to have a look. It's really interesting what he says, and I think, and that's really an important bit, and we need to utilize this much more, and you know, in organizations, and organizations will need to do that, because otherwise, you know, in a complex world, they might not survive. We need to find a better, more sustainable way to utilize the human resource. And I think that's what the human-centered organization is about. And I mean, cognitive diversity, psychological safety, all goes very well in there. And I hope it will become vocabulary in the next revision when they review the standard. And, you know, I hope this will be in there. Hopefully it might have some influence, but we will see.
Yeah, it's mate, I could talk about this all day, but it's fascinating, and I just think it's exciting. I don't know what you're kind of like. I try and communicate to people like, well, I think a lot of people get really frustrated when they get access or insight into this new kind of complex socio-technical, you know, human factors way of thinking about work/safety, whatever quality, whatever you're doing. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, this is amazing. It's life changing. But like, and I think a lot of people get stressed out or really frustrated because, as we said earlier, that kind of academia imagined to academia is done gap is very large, or, you know, like work in reality, you know, doesn't cover this stuff yet. And I try and flip it to be like, it's such an exciting time to be in work, because we are now going through this journey at an exponential rate. Like, I've been in safety for 10 years and we were not having this conversation at my level. Like, this was unknown to me. And I'm not the kind of person that is in this space. Like, I had never had an attraction to academia. I'd never had an attraction to anything like this. So the fact that I've picked that up, I think, and then gone, wow, this is freaking amazing. That is an indicator that we are doing the right thing. And I think the mass exponential growth of podcasts, of people talking about this on social media, writing blogs, making videos, you know, whatever you're doing, do more, because we need to get this message out there. Do not get frustrated, but communicate it out to the world and tell more people.
And I would also like express my thanks to you, like doing these podcasts, which are really, really good. And I mean, helping people like me who are a bit introvert, and, you know, it's like, I can write an article about something, but it normally takes me a long time because, well, dyslexia and things like that. And, you know, I would probably rather draw you a picture of what I want to do rather than writing something. But it's sometimes, you know, to talk about it, I think it's the best thing we can do, and to keep the conversation going. And I think it's maybe something I learned, or Steve Shorrock mentioned it a while ago. I mean, I think he's a bit, in a way, he also had to start acting more extrovert. So I can learn to do that, but still, I'm normally out of my comfort zone. So I'm always a bit like, I think I can say a couple good things, hopefully, but it's like always, it's not my natural environment. It's like it's even, or give a talk to 15 people. I'm normally quite okay with that, but more than that could become more like a stressful thing. So yeah.
I think, I mean, I always get really uncomfortable when people say like really nice things about the podcast, but thank you very much for what you said. That it's uncomfortable, one, because I'm not very good at taking compliments, but two, because I do this for really selfish reasons, like really selfish reasons. Like, obviously I have a drive behind me to make work better, make work fairer. That is ingrained in me and has been from a childhood. I always wanted fairer things. Like I hated unfair things. So there is a deep reason why I do this stuff, but actually this podcast is solely selfish. Like, I have learned so much, and I would not have been the person I am now if it was not for this podcast, if it was not for talking to people like yourself that do put themselves out there on a blog. Just because you choose your media to be a blog and I choose my media to talk, because it would take me 10 years to write a blog of your standard, because I just couldn't do it. I struggle the same way that you do with words and spelling and grammar.
But just to say, it took me a long time, and I had a lot of help.
I am intrigued. If you would prefer to draw something, I would like to see that. I would like to see somebody do that. I think that's a good thing. You think about what we've talked about in this cognitive diversity space, and I talk about this a lot of work. It's everything we do at Safety is written down.
Yeah.
And that only ticks the box for some people. There's a lot of people, the majority of people are kinetic learners, they're visual and auditory learners. That's three different types that they are. So that means we're only satisfying a very small percentage of the society by writing everything down. That's why I love how popular podcasts I've got. And
but you say we're not human centered at the moment as in general, because we only produce output for
exactly
a few people.
Everything is written. And there's a certain podcaster I know that had a bit of a monopoly in this space before, that's not very happy about the amount of podcasts that are now out. And a lot of people ask me the same question, does another podcast come up this week? There's one like every week in the safety space now. When I started, there was 2 in the UK and there was a handful around the world. And it was like, oh God, it's really competitive now. Do you like that? And or what, you're not worried? I'm like, no, I'm not worried. Like, one, I still get to talk to these people, so I'm still learning, and my audience is still growing, which is great. But my main thing here is that it's a good thing, and I've said this time and time again. Like, it's a good thing because there are people out there that love the way I talk about things, that love the way I question people, and there are people out there that fucking hate the way I talk to people. They hate the way that I kind of make my videos and interview people, and they love the way that, I don't know, Jay Allen or Colin Nottage or Todd Conklin, and there are people that like all of it and they mix all the things, but there are people that just can't stand the way that I do stuff. They don't listen to me, and that's fine, because if it was just me and I had the monopoly of safety, what a horrible world we would live in if it was just me. It's a good thing from a cognitive diversity point of view to have so many of these podcasts, so many YouTube videos. It's a great thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's, it makes everything better, and it's, but it's just you were saying, like writing really. I mean, I think it's not easy to write, and I just feel with my blog, it's for me, it's hard to promote it as well, because I got a couple likes on LinkedIn. I mean, a couple of comments. I normally have a bit of people who like my work where I work here in Scotland.
Yeah,
they like my inputs. but I think just to promote it, and I think I'm currently learning animation.
Cool.
So I want to do more like with animation. I'm fairly okay with doing like with drawing and using vector drawing tools, things like that. I quite like this way because it's for me easier. It takes more time even as writing,
Yeah.
but I think I reach more people to understand what I'm trying to say.
Because it comes naturally to you, obviously. I think that's pretty clear to me. If that comes out, a picture paints 1,000 words, is what they say, isn't it? But if it comes more naturally to you, then do that, man. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Like, love to see more pictures of like, I don't know, this is complexity theory in a painting or a drawing. Like, for me, I would be like, shit, that makes sense. And I would prefer to look at that.
I just did that. Actually, exactly what you say.
Amazing. I want to see it.
I can explain you complexity theory with mountains and stuff. If you want the session at some point, just let me know. We can.
Definitely.
It's not today, but I can prepare something, and maybe if you're interested in that, just talk a bit more about what I learned from complex system theory. I'm not an expert. I'm not Scott Page, but I would really recommend Scott Page's book. He's maybe, am I allowed to show a book?
Yeah.
So this one here really is
diversity bonus. Scott.
And I find it's a bit more technical than Matthew's book.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's still for a wider. His other books are then very much complexity theory, which it's a bit technical, but
it's a bit complex.
Yeah, but I mean, I started with this one, so I read all of his books, and whatever I can get through Audible, I get.
Yeah.
My throughput there is about 10 times larger than when I read it. So.
Oh wow. See, it's interesting because I struggle with Audible. It doesn't stick in I get too distracted. Like, I'll listen to Audible whilst I'm on a walk or something, and I just can't get it to stay in. Whereas reading a book, it stays in a little bit more.
Okay.
I don't know why.
I normally have both. I read a chapter, and I normally listen to it on when I walk.
Oh, okay. What, the same book?
Yeah, and then I normally. Yeah, they make quite a lot of money from me because I buy the electronic book, I buy the physical book, I buy the audio book. So.
Oh my God.
But everything helps me in a way to work, so like the electronic book, I can just search for something and that's, it was there. Yeah. But then I normally go through, if really a book I really like, I create a complete mind map and take it all into bits and
that's cool. I like
link it to other books, things like that. So, but when I go for a walk, I normally stop every now and again I need to put a mark in here. Oh, that's interesting. And then
yeah.
I'm the weird guy in my village and walks around. Oh no, I need to put that. That's interesting.
You be careful, mate. Weird guy in a small village in Scotland. You build a reputation. That will never go away in a village of Scotland.
Yeah.
Right, mate. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to let you go as well.
Yeah, very good. That was brilliant. Thank you very much for the invite. And if you want to have a chat about complex system theory in graphical ways, I'm not quite finished yet with it, but
I want to. When you finish, I want to see it. I want to talk about it. I want to do the whole thing. I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I think we need more stuff like that. I think that's great.
Brilliant. Very good. Okay, that gives me motivation to get it finished.
There you go. Yeah. The best place if people wanted to read your stuff is at your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, I have it featured on there. So, or maybe I don't know would you be able to feature it when you put the podcast on?
Yeah,
just that's the thing I wrote and.
Yeah, we'll link.
But I sometimes.
Go on.
I sometimes I like every critique. I just find it the worst, if people don't really look at it. But you can be critical about my work.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can start with a discussion.
Yeah.
But it's like, give me a thumbs up if you like it, or let me know. Or if you disagree with something, please write it in. And let's have a chat. And disagreement isn't a bad thing.
No, definitely. As long as that person's not being a dickhead about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is like, needs to be civilized, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Very true. So I will link the article that we were talking about, human-centered organization, in this, and I'll link your LinkedIn as well, so people can get hold of you, mate. But thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Brilliant. Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, peeps, hope you enjoyed that conversation with Christian. He's a lovely guy. I could talk to him all day, as I could with most of my guests, really. Again, apologies, Christian, that this was recorded so long ago. Before you go, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please leave us a rate and review on whatever platform you're listening to if you can, or a subscribe or a follow, or maybe you can think of one person that would really benefit from listening to my conversation with Christian and share it with them. That would be really, really appreciated. Thank you very much, Paradigm Human Performance, for sponsoring Rebranding Safety podcast and YouTube channel. And don't forget to go check out Project Mollitiam Mastermind Community, or if you want to try it out for free, you can message me or Colin Nottage. Otherwise, I'll catch you next week. Safe.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the position of the companies. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are examples only based on limited and dated open source information and should not be utilised in real life as the only solution available. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic or otherwise, without prior written permission from James MacPherson.